Today we are going to be talking about some palettes that I really want for whatever reason, but I also know deep down in my heart that I really should not be getting these palettes. So I think we should just get into it. The first palette on my list is the new Faced Gingerbread palette. When I first saw this, I thought it was super cute, and I personally love gingerbread. I think gingerbread is so good, and so I was like, if that palette smells like gingerbread, I'm for sure getting it. Like, I don't even care what the colors are. Like, the color story is okay, it's fine. Like, I think it's cute, it's pretty. It's something that I would definitely reach for from time to time, but it's not going to be like a palette that I'm really drawn towards, that I know I'm going to keep going back to and back to all the time. So it's just one of those palettes that the outside kind of fools me into wanting them, and like I said, I really like gingerbread. So when this palette first started sneak peeking, I was like, oh my god, like I am definitely getting that palette. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, you need to just stay away. As cute as that palette is, like, you really don't need that in your collection. So I'm pretty sure I'll be skipping over it, but I feel like that palette is just going to have a place in my heart, and like I'm always going to want that palette. The next palette is the Yes Please by Colorpop, and I'm sure you've all seen this. It has this beautiful yellow shade in it, it's got some really nice warm tones, and it's a nice curated color story, and that's what I like about it. But you guys know me. You guys know I'm not really drawn to like 80% of this palette, because really there's like 3 shades that kind of stand out, and there's the yellow and the red and like one of the shimmers, you know. It's really not that exciting, but in the back of my mind I'm like, but everybody has this palette, that means I should have this palette as well, and it's so inexpensive because it's Colorpop, and Colorpop shadows are pretty good, and so I feel like I can kind of justify getting that palette even though I really don't need that palette. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you guys have palettes like that. Do let me know down below if you have any palettes that you really want but you know that you shouldn't get because you're just not going to use them too much. The next palette on my list is one that I have been so close to getting so many times, and this is the Michelou Witchcraft palette. I've seen so many people use this palette, and there's been so many mixed opinions about it, so I don't really know what to think. Like, if I had seen only good reviews, that palette would have been mine so long ago, but since stupidly I've been watching the reviews, and now I feel very torn and confused and sad and angry, and because I really want that palette, but I also don't want to get it if it's gonna end up like not being that good. So that palette is also one of those palettes that I'm like, I want you. The next palette on my list is from Dose of Colors, and this is not even just one palette, it's really all of their 5-pan palettes. Now, I really love that they're focusing on one color and it's all mattes, and they have different depths of every color. So I think that's amazing. I think that's a great idea in theory. I don't know how often I would ideally pull out a palette like that to really pair with other palettes. Because I'm not really the kind of person who will just go for like one color in my crease. It's very rare that I just go for one kind of color in my crease. Like, I like to use 2 different kinds of colors in my crease most of the time. So I don't really know if I would really use those palettes enough, but I've heard so many good things about it that make me really want them, and I know that they're good quality. I know that when I get them, I would probably be happy to have them, but I don't want to spend my money on them, even though I really want them. The next palette on my list I have heard nothing but good things about, and this is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. I have not tried anything from Colored Rain before. I would love to do so. I'm kind of eyeing their vivid pigments, but especially now that they're in a palette, it's even more tempting to get because it's a lot easier when you don't have singles, so you have to store an easy palette and then you kind of, you know, forget that you have them and stuff. So that is a brand that I really do want to try eventually, but especially their Queen of Hearts palette. I've just heard so many people rave about this, but again, you guys know that color story is not really me. Yes, there's a couple of really beautiful shades in that palette that I would love to have in my collection, but for the rest of the palette, it's not really something that I need personally, that I would really use that much. But I also know that that palette is kind of limited edition and it sells out sometimes, and every time they bring it back in stock, I'm like, oh, it's back in stock, you know, like I should probably buy it this time around, but I have to like kind of knock some sense into me and be like, no, you really don't need to buy that palette. The next palette on my list, I don't even know why I want this, but these are the Smashbox Cover Shop palettes. There's 2 of them that I want. There's one that has a pink and a green shade in it, I think it is, or maybe it's like a pink and a light blue or something like that. But those palettes, for some reason, just catches my attention in a way that makes me go, that's different. Because I appreciate that Smashbox is trying to do something different with their color stories. I like the fact that they're a very small palette, They're very compact, but I've just heard very mixed reviews on the quality of those palettes. Most people say that they're just okay, and I don't really want to settle with just okay for a palette. Like, I really want my palettes to be outstanding, and I really want them to have a chance of becoming one of my favorite palettes. But if I already know before buying one of them that it's not going to be one of my favorite palettes, then I mean, really, what's the point? And the other one that I've been kind of eyeing is like the blue one. I'm not really sure. I don't remember exactly what it looks like because I don't have the pictures on my phone. I just have a list of the names of the palettes that I'm kind of thinking about. But that one is also really pretty, and I really need to just stop it because I'm not going to pick up those palettes. I don't need them. I don't want them in my collection, but I do want them in my collection. Like, do you know what I mean? I can't be the only one who's just constantly so contradicting myself when it comes to like makeup, and there's just things that I want and things that I don't want, and then there's things that I know that I shouldn't want and things that I know that I want but I shouldn't want, and it's just the whole thing is just very confusing. Now, the next palette on my list is a palette that I do think I would actually get quite a bit of use out of, and this is the Too Faced Gold palette. The one that has all the shimmers in it, and I just think this palette is beautiful. Again, I'm not really one to pull out different palettes a lot because I do tend to stick to only using one, especially when I do film, but when I don't film, I always reach into several palettes and I do really enjoy that. But given that it is a all shimmer palette, I feel like it's very easy to just forget about it. But I have heard that the quality of this palette is amazing, and the shimmers look stunning, and even though I probably have most of them in my collection already, it would be nice to just have them all in the same place, which again, logic doesn't make any sense because I still have all these palettes, but these whole makeup justification conversations that are going on in my head is just very overwhelming at times, and sometimes I just need to get my thoughts out and let you know that I don't need this palette. I don't need it. I really don't need it. Here's another palette that you guys are gonna be like, are you out of your mind? But I actually kind of want the new Juvia's Place palette. I know you're all looking at me like, oh my god, like you don't even like neutrals, why would you need this palette? And honestly, I really want to become a Juvia's Place collector, and I feel like I'm only missing about 3 of their palettes now before I have them all. So it's one of those like Pokemon things, you gotta catch them all, you know? And I really don't need to catch them all because it's just gonna cost me money and waste away my collection, but I really want all the Juvia's Place palettes because I just love them. And it's stupid because I don't need that palette. I feel like the only times I would ever use it would be maybe to use 2 of the shades as a blush, you know? Like sometimes I do that with Juvia's Place palettes, especially the ones that have really big pans. One of the pink shades in the Douce palette is a beautiful pink blush, and if you guys have that palette, you should absolutely try it if you like a very light, cool tone pink blush. It's so beautiful. So yeah, I'm not gonna get that palette, I don't think. Maybe not anytime soon, but it could happen. Maybe, who knows? Maybe, maybe not. The next palettes that I want to talk about are both from Natasha De Nona, and the first one I think I mentioned in a couple of videos, and it's the Nude Gold palette. I do really like my Sunset palette, which you guys know has a lot of gold in it, so I really don't need a gold palette with golds in it that are the same as the ones that are in the Sunset palette, but it's a really pretty palette. I've seen so many people use it, everybody seems to absolutely love it. I have such a weak spot for Natasha De Nona's eyeshadows, and I don't know why, because I have bought the Tropic palette that I ended up returning. I did not like it, and I don't know why I still just keep want to buy her stuff. But there's just something inside of me that just makes me like gravitate towards all her products, and I just want to try them all. Like I even bought her foundation that came out not that long ago, and I do really like it, but the shade is a little bit off for me right now in the winter, but I really like that foundation. And I also bought her new like chrome pot thing. I forget what this is called, but this is beautiful. I made a video about it. It is called the Chroma Crystal Top Coat, and I think this is so beautiful. I just like the aesthetic of her brand so much that I want to own everything, but like it's so expensive, so that palette, I really do not need it, and I've talked myself out of buying it so many times, especially during the sale. Like I was really eyeing that palette, and it's stupid because that palette is really not even me except for like 5 of the shades. Now the other palette that I want from Natasha De Nona is the new mini Cranberry palette, and I think this palette is beautiful. I saw it in store, I've swatched it, I think it's so nice, but the mattes in it seem a little bit iffy, and I don't know if the formula is different in the little mini palettes than they are in the bigger palettes. I have heard that they are, but that is the only thing that is keeping me from buying that palette. I think the colors in it are so beautiful, and especially that one pink shade is just, oh, it melted my heart when I swatched it, and I just went, oh, it's so pretty. So I really want both of those palettes. I might end up picking up the Cranberry palette at some point, maybe during the next sale, or maybe if she's having a Black Friday sale or something like that. I'm still very interested, and I kind of do want that palette still. So I feel like that's the one palette on this list that I'm kind of like, I shouldn't maybe get this because I don't know if the quality is going to be there, but I really, really want that palette. I think it's so pretty. So might end up getting that, might not, we'll see. Can't promise anything, but I'm very much eyeing it. And the last palette on my list is just, this is so stupid, but it is the NYX Love You So Mochi palette. And the only reason why I want this is because I know that the shadows are kind of like a putty formula where like you press on it, you just get really satisfied. And the colors in it are pretty too, like they're nice and colorful and kind of like pastel-y. And I do think it's a really cute palette, and I don't know why I want it, but every time I see someone talk about it, or I see a picture of it, or anything like that, even when I see it in a store, like I know it's not that expensive, or at least I don't think it is. Maybe it's one of those NYX palettes that are like way overpriced and I just totally forget about it, but I don't know why I want that palette. Like, that's definitely the palette on this list that I really do not need, and I really don't even think I would use it. I think I would just buy it and then stare at it and be like, aw, I like you, but then I would never put it on my eyes. So those were the palettes that I have been kind of lusting over for a while, but I know deep down that I really should not be pulling the trigger on any of these just because of, you know, whatever reasons that I just said. Let me know if you have any palettes that you feel the same way about. I would love to know if any of the same ones are on your list. So that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.